students. On behalf of Cadets Defense Academy, I welcome you to this presentation on SSB overview. Okay. Good morning, students. My name is Lieutenant Colonel PRADEEP BHATIA. On behalf of Cadets Defense Academy, I welcome you to this presentation on SSB overview orientation. Now, as you all know, in all government jobs, when you clear the written exam, in the second stage, you have to face an interview which lasts only for about 15, 20 or maybe 30 minutes. And then either you get selected or you get rejected. But unlike that, in the armed forces, in order to become officers, you also have to go through a SSB interview process, which lasts for a period of 5 days, wherein you have to appear for various different type of tests, psychological tests, group tests, physical fitness tests, and also a face-to-face interview. So what is this process about? This is what we'll talk about today. Okay. Now, some ground rules. You can ask questions anytime. You can keep typing in your questions. As I glance at the screen, if I get to see a question, I'll answer. Or you can reserve asking your questions at the end of the session. It's up to you. I leave it up to you. But please remember, in case you are asking questions, those questions must be related to SSB. Do not ask questions about NDA or life in the armed forces or anything else. This is a session on SSB, so any question addressed about SSB will get answered. Anything beyond that purview, I will refuse to answer. Okay, now you must be wondering who I am. So this is my profile. You can have a look at it. Okay, so let's go to the preview. Now this presentation will be of about 90 minutes duration, and after that I have earmarked 20 to 30 minutes for you to ask questions if you have any. So total duration a little less than 2 hours or a maximum of 2 hours. Now what all would I be covering in this presentation? What is the overview? In the first part, I'll talk about the preliminaries of SSB, the initial part before the SSB begins. And that would entail covering what is SSB, where is it held, how is it held, when do you get your call letter, what are the myths associated with SSB, what are the disadvantages in case you fail to clear SSB in the first attempt, and what are the initial preparatory actions you are required to take before you proceed for the SSB process. So this is the major part of my presentation. In the second part, I'll talk about the breakdown of that 5-day stay. When you go for your SSB, you are required to be there for five full days. So what happens on a daily basis? This is the second part I'll talk about. And the third part, which probably I may not be able to cover due to paucity of time, would be about the third part is about the detailed explanation of each test. What is the idea, the concept behind that test? What is the format? How is it conducted? What are the OLQs checked? And what are the do's and don'ts pertaining to that test? Your time permitting, I may talk about 1 or 2 tests, but very likely I may not be able to, in that limited time, I may not be able to touch the third part. But as a bonus, I will talk about part number 4, preparatory actions. What preparatory actions must you begin to take from now onwards in order to clear the SSB process successfully in the very first attempt? So this is what I will, as a bonus, I'll give to you. And most of what I will speak will be in English. And there's a reason for that. Why I would speak only in English, there's a reason which you will get to know as the slides are unfolded. Okay. And there is also a piece of good news and a piece of bad news for you all candidates who are attending this presentation. There's a piece of good news and a piece of bad news, which I will reveal at the end of the session. Okay. Now, every slide that is being shown to you, it has a meaning. It has a lot of significance. So please pay full attention to each slide. Understand what is being revealed. Understand the contents of that slide. And if you are able to do that, it will make you understand the Ssb process clearly, and it will help you clear the Ssb subsequently. Okay, now first of all, before we go any further, why do we call the first alphabet of Ssb is services? So why do we call this services? Or in other words, what is the meaning of the word services? Okay, let's have a look. The word services in the English language has several meanings, but pertaining to Ssb, it is point number 4 which applies. The word services is a word jointly used for the 3 fighting wings, the Army, Air Force and Navy. Collectively, they are called services. Now, because through this selection process, candidates, both boys and girls, they are shortlisted, they are screened and shortlisted to become officers in the 3 wings, Army, Air Force and Navy. Therefore, it is called Services Selection Board. So that is the reason. You can have a look at the slide. This slide explains what the word services means. Okay. Now, generally, there are 4 stages of selection which you already know. The first is the written part conducted either by UPSC for NDA, CDS exams, and for the Air Force and by the Air Force authorities for your AFCAT. So the first part is written test. It is followed by Ssb interview. The second stage of selection is the Ssb interview, followed by the third and fourth stages, which is medical and merit. Right? All these 4 stages are progressive and they are absolutely independent. No stage has any connection with any other stage. Okay, in some cases, generally Ssb is the second stage of selection, but in certain cases, Ssb becomes the first stage of selection. For example, in your CDS exam, if you are a NCC C certificate holder, some people get a waiver. You don't have to appear for the written, you are directly called for Ssb. Similarly, for your TES exam or for all technical entry exams, that is after your graduation, you are directly called for Ssb. But as far as NDA is concerned, Ssb is always the second stage of selection. Okay. Now, as far as Ssb is concerned, the selection process is concerned, it is absolutely the same whether you are appearing for NDA exam or for CDS or for AFCAT or for any kind of technical entry. The Ssb process is exactly the same. It is the written part which is different. It is different for NDA, different for AFCAT and for CDS. But the Ssb process is exactly the same. The duration is the same. The number of tests are the same. The yardsticks, the parameters are exactly the same for all tests, for all kind of entries. Okay, in the case of Air Force optees who wish to join the flying branch, there is one additional test called PABT, Pilot's Aptitude and Battery Test, which you have to appear. For all other candidates, there are 17 tests in all that you have to appear in Ssb, except for the Air Force flying optees who have to appear in one additional test. Now, a question is often asked, why do we have Ssb? If you have cleared your 12th class and if you have cleared the UPSC written exam of NDA, then according to the number of vacancies and according to the merit list, why can't the top 370 boys be called directly for training at NDA? Why go through this 5-day screening process called Ssb? So the reason for that is, see, your academic marks, your 12th class marks and you're having cleared the UPSC written exam, it only ascertains that you are good in academics. आप पढ़ाई में अच्छे हैं. That is why you could clear the written exam of UPSC. which is an all India basis competitive exam. But it does not in any way indicate your leadership qualities, the military leadership qualities that you have or do not have. This part is not indicated through your academic marks. So this part is done by the Ssb process, by the selection board. Through that 5-day selection process and through those various tests, they are able to ascertain whether you possess the right military leadership qualities or not, which will enable you to become an officer. So this part is done through the Ssb, and therefore we have this Ssb. So in other words, the aim, the purpose of having an Ssb is to check the suitability of a candidate, whether a boy or a girl, to check your suitability to become an officer in the armed forces. So this part is done by the Ssb, which cannot be ascertained through your written marks of your 10th, 12th or your graduation, or you're having cleared the UPSC written exam. Okay, Ssb is a very enriching experience. You know, it is a once in a lifetime experience. Even if you do not make it through, you will still cherish the experience of your 5-day Ssb stay, which you can never forget for a lifetime. And the entire selection process of Ssb is absolutely 100% fair. It is very accurate, very scientific and logical, and the probability of a wrong candidate getting selected or a good candidate getting selected is almost zero. There's not even 1 in a million chance that a candidate who deserves to get selected would get rejected, and somebody who does not deserve may get selected. That probability is of absolutely zero. Okay, now every candidate aspiring to join the armed forces, you must aspire to clear the Ssb in the very first attempt. If you do not clear it in the first attempt, you may have to face 5 major disadvantages. Now, which are those disadvantages? Let's have a look very briefly. First is loss of pay and allowances. Now, what does it mean? It means if you do not clear Ssb in the first attempt, in other words, if you do not clear all the stages and get selected in this attempt, the next chance will come your way after 6 months, which means if you would have got selected in the first attempt and would have joined NDA and completed your training, and the day you would have become an officer, you would have started drawing your salary. Now this process will get delayed by 6 months. So the salary which you were supposed to start getting from today, now you will start getting that salary after 6 months. In 6 months, and today approximately 1 to 1.25 lakhs is the salary which a young officer draws. When you take into consideration all your allowances, your accommodation, your free rations and various other benefits, this is the money that you get every month. Now this money you will begin to get after 6 months, which means you incurred a loss of almost 7 lakh rupees. So this is the biggest reason why you must put in your 100% and try and get selected. Number 1. Number 2, pain, misery and discomfort. If you fail to clear the written exam, or if you clear the written and fail to clear the Ssb, the next time when you are appearing for this exam, you will have to start anew. That means you will still have to appear in the written exam. Start from scratch, which means you will have to study all those subjects, maths, physics, chemistry, grammar, whatever, everything will have to restart from the beginning. So all that is very painful and it causes a lot of discomfort, which you will have to go through. Number 3, embarrassment. If somebody, your close friend gets selected and you get rejected, it will be very, very embarrassing. People will ask questions, your parents will ask questions. If he could make it, why couldn't you? And you would have no answer for that. Number 4, creation of serious doubt in your mind. Now this is a psychological point. Anything that you attempt to do and fail, next time when you are trying to do it, this doubt keeps creeping up in your mind. Last time I could not do it. Last time I failed. Will I fail again? So this thought will keep bothering you. And the last point is, this point will come at the end of your service, retirement benefits. Now your retirement benefits, your pension, gratuity, provident fund, etc., they are calculated on the length of your service. If you would have made it through the NDA in the first attempt, your length of service would be more. If you made it through in the second attempt, it would mean your length of service would be 6 months less. And if you make it through in the third attempt, it means your period of service would be 1 year less. So accordingly, this retirement benefit, your pension and other benefits would get affected. But this point will come into play at the end of your service, not today. So these are the 5 disadvantages you would have to face. Now let's look at some myths. What is a myth? It is a false belief, galat dharnaएं, which many people have, boys and girls have, about SSB. So let's have a look at this also. Number 1, the first myth which people have is that only those boys and girls who have studied in a CBSE school, they have a better chance of clearing the SSB. If you have studied in a state board, whichever state, whether it is Uttarakhand or Punjab or Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, if I am from a state board, if I have got my 10+2 certificate from a state board, I have a lesser chance of clearing the SSB. No, this is not true. Not true at all. Your clearing the SSB is not dependent on your being from the CBSE board or from the state board. It is dependent on what kind of leadership qualities, OLQs that you display. That will decide whether you are going to make it through or not. So this point is absolutely false. Number 2, I do not have 90% marks in my 10th, in my 12th or in my graduation, and therefore I have lesser chances of clearing the SSB. So I told you a short while ago that SSB, in SSB, it is not your academic marks that they want to see. It is your leadership qualities, officer-like qualities that you have, which they want to see. It has no bearing on your marks. Your 10th and 12th marks have no bearing, none whatsoever. Now, when you go for your SSB, you will yourself see people who got 93, 96, 94% marks, they get rejected. And people who only got 66, 79, 82% marks, they are the ones who have cleared the SSB. So, please remove this myth from your mind that I have got less marks in my 10+2 and therefore I have less chances of clearing the SSB. No, not at all. Number 3, I come from a small town. I am not from a big city like Mumbai, New Delhi, Chandigarh, Bangalore, Kolkata. These are big cities. I come from a very small city or from a village, and therefore I will not get selected. So this is not true. Your place where you come from has no bearing on your selection or your rejection. When you join NDA, you will get to see for yourself almost 80 to 90% cadets who are undergoing training in NDA, they are from small places. Just about 10, maybe 12%, 15% candidates are from big cities like New Delhi or Bangalore or Calcutta. Only barely about 10, 12% candidates are from such kind of cities. So your place where you come from has no bearing at all on your selection or rejection. Number 4, this is a myth which many boys and many girls, especially girls, have this. I am not fair complexioned. मैं देखने में सुंदर नहीं हूँ, गोरी नहीं हूँ. And therefore, this girl is very, very beautiful, good looking. She will get selected, I will get rejected. So your being gora or being kala, your being good looking or not so good looking has nothing to do with your selection in SSB. This is a selection to make you an officer in the armed forces. This is not a selection to make you a hero or heroine in a Bollywood film. Therefore, this point is absolutely irrelevant. Number 5, I have already failed in one SSB and therefore now when I go for the second attempt, I will fail again. No, not at all. This has nothing to do with your selection or rejection. You could not clear the SSB in the first attempt because you did not display the right qualities, the right OLQs. You did not display the right temperament in the first attempt. Now when you go for your second attempt, if you are able to develop those OLQs, if you are able to develop and display those OLQs, you will get selected in the second attempt. If you are able to do it in the third attempt, you will get selected in the third attempt. So your having failed in the SSB in the first attempt has nothing to do with the outcome of the second SSB. So please remove this misconception. Number 6, a very prominent myth which many boys and girls have about the Allahabad selection board. The Allahabad selection board is actually a rejection board. No, not at all. I can prove this point with a fact that don't candidates from Allahabad get selected, or don't candidates from other boards, Bangalore or Bhopal or Dehradun or any other place, don't they get rejected? So why this myth about Allahabad? Even in Allahabad selection board, the candidates who get selected, the candidates who get rejected, just like other boards. So Allahabad selection board is not a rejection board. It is, I would still call it a selection board only. You display the right qualities, you will surely get selected from Allahabad. And if you do not show the right qualities, wherever you go, you will still get rejected. Okay. Myth number 7, English. English is a very difficult language and cannot be learnt. No, not at all. English is a very easy, very simple, and a very friendly language. Even if you do not speak English at all, you're very weak in it. All you need is about 3 to 4 months time to develop to learn this language and become proficient in it. Not more than 4 months. So those candidates, and since you need English in SSB, my advice to you would be, you have just appeared in that ND exam a few days ago. And by the time you go for your SSB, you have almost 4 months, maybe a little more time available to you. So please make use of this time to develop your communication skills. It is a very easy language. You can do it very easily. In about 3 to 4 months time, you can become reasonably proficient in this language. Okay, now let's move to the SSB part. How does the SSB part the process begin to get started? Okay, now once the written result is declared, the UPSC written exam result, once it is declared, that means, and if you have made it, that means you will now be going for the SSB, that is for sure. And the ball of SSB sets rolling with the issue of joining instructions to the candidates. Now these instructions are issued to you via email on the registered email ID that you had given at the time of applying for this exam. You get instructions, these joining instructions via email on your email ID. So this instruction, release of instructions, joining instructions is the first step which starts the SSB process. Now you will get these instructions at least 1.5 months in advance. And in the worst case, if the worst comes to worst, at least 30 days in advance, you will get this notice that you have to report for USSB at such and such place on such and such date. So you will get at least 1 month, but in most cases 1.5 months, and sometimes even more than 1.5 months time is given to you. Now this time is given to you so that you can plan your move for your SSB, prepare your documents, get your railway reservation done. You cannot get your railway reservation done if they were to give you only 2, 3, 4, 5 days or 7 days, notice. So that is why they give you at least 30 to 45, sometimes as much as 2 months in advance, you get your joining instructions so that you can prepare and get organized for your proceeding to the SSB center. Okay, now the gist of this joining instruction that you will get is a 13, 14 page letter. But the summary of it, the gist of it is what all it contains is shown on this slide. The first thing which they tell you is on what date, where, and what time are you required to report. Number 2, which documents are you required to carry for your SSB process? What are the IDs? Some SSB centers ask for 2 IDs, but some only demand 1 ID, and that 1 ID is your Aadhaar card. your passport size photos. What are the clothing and personal items that you need to carry when you go for your SSB? This depends on the time of the SSB. If you're going to, let's say you're going to Allahabad in the month of January, which is a very cold period, so you may have to carry your winter clothing. But if you're going for your SSB in August or September or May, June, which are hot months, you don't need to carry your winter clothing. So your clothing and personal items, this will depend on the time and the city where you are going for your SSB. Okay, passbook of bank or checkbook and AC3 fare. The point number 4 and 5 are linked. You are entitled third AC fare to and fro from your hometown to your SSB center and back. Even if you get rejected, this railway fare is admissible to you. So this fare is not paid to you in cash, it is remitted to your banker. And therefore, they want a copy of your checkbook and your passbook. Okay, point number 6, risk certificate. What is risk certificate? Risk certificate is, now in SSB, since you're going to be there for 5 days, in that SSB, there are certain tests which are conducted outdoors. These tests are conducted by the GTO. Now there is a probability, a slight probability of a candidate sustaining some kind of an injury during the conduct of these tests. So in case you sustain any kind of injury, you cannot press any claim from the government. You cannot demand any money that I have been called for SSB. During that SSB test, I sustained this injury, and therefore you must compensate me. This money is not admissible to you. And therefore, to obviate that kind of a situation, they would ask you to bring a risk certificate. Now, what is this risk? What are the contents of this risk certificate? Let's have a look. You can read it. It is self-explanatory. This risk certificate is to be given on a stamp paper, and it is to be signed by your parent, and it is to be submitted on the very first day of your SSB. When the documentation takes place, this is a document that they would demand to see or to take. Okay. Please remember, any violation in bringing the documents that they have asked for would render you to become ineligible to appear for SSB. Make sure you check and cross-check the list at least a dozen times before you proceed for SSB. If you fail to bring even one document, if you omit to bring even one document which they have asked for, that will render you ineligible to appear for SSB. For example, if they've asked you to bring your 10th high school mark sheet, original mark sheet, and you bring a tested copy of that mark sheet, a photocopy, that is not acceptable to them. They will not allow you to appear for SSB, and therefore this is a very important point. When you get your joining instructions, please take a printout, make a list of what all they have asked for, and make sure, be 100% sure you have put everything in your bag before you board the train. Okay, where are the SSB centers located? There are 11 SSB centers all over India, and according to your choice of arm, you will be called to one of these centers. You can have a look at this list. Okay. Now, some points pertaining to your reporting. The designated place of reporting is at the railway station only. If you want, you can go by flight. Let's say you are in Dehradun and your SSB center is in Bangalore. So it is not necessary that you have to go by train. You can go by flight. But you will be reimbursed only the third AC railway fare from your starting station to your SSB reporting station and back. That excess amount that you paid, you will have to bear it yourself. Number one. Number two, you can go by flight, but nobody will pick you up from the airport. From the airport to the railway station, you will have to reach under your own arrangements. And from the railway station, the SSB center's bus would pick up the candidates and take you to the SSB center. The SSB will provide accommodation for you, food and accommodation. Let's say you're going to Bangalore, so you don't have to book a hotel. You don't have to worry about food, कि खाना कहाँ खाएंगे, रहेंगे कहाँ. Accommodation and food is provided by the SSB centers. You get dormitory accommodation and food is provided by them. On termination of the SSB, whether you get rejected on the first day or on the 5th day, or if you make it through after your medical, you will be dropped back at the railway station in the SSB center's transport. You don't have to hire a cab or catch a bus or take an auto. The SSB center will provide transport to drop you at the railway station. But for the return reservation, you will have to, SSB will not arrange for your railway reservation. That is your own arrangement. Okay. Now, let's say if you have any relatives in the city where you're going for your SSB, you're not allowed to stay with them. You have to stay inside the SSB premises only. You cannot stay with your uncle who belongs to the same city. You can go and meet them in the evening. Yes, that is okay. That is allowed. But as far as spending the night is concerned, you cannot spend the night at their place. You will have to stay inside the SSB premises only. You cannot invite any visitor, any uncle, auntie, any relatives, any friends that you have in the city to come inside the SSB center. Please don't do that. They will not allow you, your visitors, to come inside. So please make sure that you do not invite them. You can go and meet them all right in the evening, but no invitation must be extended to them. Now, there may be some change because of COVID-19 restrictions, which I suppose by now must have been lifted. So, when the COVID-19 restrictions were in vogue, they did not allow candidates to go to the city. But now I believe those restrictions are lifted. But you will get all those details in your joining instructions. Okay, one point about the policy on tattoos. The policy on tattoos is very simple. These guidelines, they would have listed on the joining instructions also. Basically, what is it? What does it entail? That any tattoo on any part of your body which is visible when you are wearing the uniform, outside the periphery of the uniform, if any tattoo is visible, it will render you ineligible. They will not allow you to appear for that SSB process. So please bear that in mind in case you are planning to get tattoos made. Please bear that in mind. Do not get a tattoo made on your forehead or on your cheek or on your neck. That will make you become ineligible to appear for SSB. Okay, now about the actual SSB part. The SSB part is conducted in 2 stages. Stage 1, Stage 2. In Stage 1, there is a test which is conducted on the very first day. It is called PPDT, Picture Perception and Discussion Test. It is a psychological test which you will have to appear for on the very first day of your SSB appearance. Now, if you do not clear this test, you will be removed from the selection process on the very first day, which means you have got rejected in SSB. But those candidates who are able to clear it, they go to Stage 2, which lasts for a period of 4 days. And there are various other tests that you would have to appear for in the Stage 2 selection process. And even if you fail in all of those tests, Stage 2 tests, you will not get rejected on the 2nd day or the 3rd day or the 4th day. You will only get rejected on the 5th day, which means once you have cleared Stage 1, your stay in that SSB premises for 5 days is guaranteed, even if you do very badly. But if you do not clear the Stage 1 test, the PPDT, that means you have got rejected. You will have to leave the SSB on the very first day. Okay. Generally, all tests begin around 8 o'clock. During summer months, around 8 o'clock, and by 1:30 they are all over. All the tests for the day are completed. If it is the winter months, if it is very cold, then they start around 8:30. But it is all sacrosanct. There's nothing, no fixed this thing. It all depends on the SSB, the conductors who conduct this SSB process. They give you a time, but generally it is around 8 o'clock. Okay. Once the tests for the day are over, which means after lunch hours, you are free for the day. Till next day morning, 8 o'clock, you are absolutely free. You can sleep in the afternoon, you can play games, you can go out and see that city. It is all up to you. The test, all the tests for a day, by lunchtime, they get over. Now, who are the heads who check you, who assess you? So basically, there are three assessors: the psychologist, the GTO. GTO, the full form of GTO is Group Testing Officer, and the third is the President of the Board. These three assessors would assess a candidate reporting for SSB. Now, what do these three officers check you for? The psychologist, the GTO, and the President. All three have different tests and different manner of assessing a candidate and ascertaining his suitability to become an officer. So let's have a look. What does the psychologist check in a candidate? He checks for two things. Number one, what is the candidate's IQ level? दिमाग कितना है इसका? That is IQ, intelligence quotient. Number one. Number two, what is the candidate's bent of mind? What is bent of mind? The way you are inclined to think, or the way you would respond when you face a new and unfavorable situation. If a new and unfavorable situation comes in front of you, how would you react to that new situation? Now, this has a bearing on military operations, on war in a combat-like situation. Because in a combat-like situation, you would face a lot of adverse situations. And depending on how you would respond, the psychologist would be able to assess whether you are the right candidate for becoming an officer or not. So these are the two things which the GTO checks, which the psychologist checks. Number two, the GTO. The GTO also checks for two things. Number one, the physical fitness. Why physical fitness? Because this is not a office-based job. It is not a bank's job where you would go to office at 10 o'clock, come back home by 5 o'clock. It is a field job. You would be posted in different types of terrain, sometimes in the desert, sometimes in mountains, sometimes in snowbound areas, sometimes in jungles. And this job entails you're dealing with the enemy. If you're not physically fit, you will not be able to perform your duty effectively. So this is the first thing which the GTO checks, your physical fitness. But the bigger part, the more important part which the GTO checks is your ability to fit into a team and be able to perform in cohesion with others. This part, the major focus of the GTO is on checking point number B in a candidate. Point number A, if you have some shortfall, some shortcoming, he may ignore that. Why would he ignore that? Because once you get selected and join NDA, even if you're slightly weak physically, you can make up for it. With 1 month's training, you will also become very strong. But if there's a shortfall in point number B, you do not fit in a team, you cannot work in cohesion with others, then he will never take you. This also has a bearing, a direct bearing on military operations. What happens in a military operation, whether it is conducted by the Army, Air Force or Navy, all military operations are carried out not individually by one person, but as a team. However small or big that operation may be, it will always be conducted by a team. Now, if in a team you do not fit, let's say there's an operation consisting of 6 people, 5 are very professional, very motivated, they know their job, but the 6th person is a weak link. So because of the presence of that 6th person, that entire operation can be jeopardized. It can come into some kind of, it might fail. And if that operation fail, this operation is always conducted against, a military operation is always conducted against the enemy. So if your operation fails, the advantage goes to the enemy. And if your operation succeeds, it is the enemy that gets beaten up. So this point number B has a direct relevance to your military operations. For example, have a look at this slide. There's a car or a SUV on display. This SUV runs on 4 wheels. There are 4 tires on which this runs. Let's say you have to take this SUV and go to some place which is far off, and you have to drive on that highway where this car would run at a speed of 140, 150 kilometers per hour. Now, if 3 tires are brand new, they are very well inflated, they are new tires, but the 4th tire is worn out, it has cracks, it is not correctly inflated. So what can happen? If that tire bursts while this car is in motion, this car will meet with an accident, and all occupants in the car would either get killed or get severely injured. The car will also get damaged. So a similar thing is what the GTO sees. Do these candidates fit in a team? Can they perform effectively, or would the presence of any one candidate in a military operation jeopardize that operation? So this is what he checks. Another example is, look at this engine. This is a car engine or a mini truck's engine. It is made up of several parts. Some parts are very small in size, some are big in size. They're made of different material. Some part is made of aluminium, some of steel, plastic, rubber, copper, different kinds of metals, right? But each part has a role to perform. It makes the engine run efficiently. Now, if any part gets damaged, what will happen? Either the engine will stop functioning, the car will stop, or it may continue running, but it will lose its efficiency. So this is precisely what the GTO checks. Does this candidate fit in a team? Can he perform in a team or not? Or would his presence in that team hamper their progress in any way? So this is the GTO's job. Now the third person, the president. President is the head of the board. The GTO and the psychologist are subordinate to the president. Now the president has only one test, a face-to-face interview. And through that interview, he checks the overall personality of that candidate. That interview may last only about 15 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. But in that 10, 15, 20 minutes, he is able to effectively gauge the personality of that candidate. And what all does it entail? What kind of communication skills does he have? What kind of confidence level does he have? What is his knowledge? Knowledge about events taking place in the country, events taking place worldwide, those events which have a bearing on a country. What kind of manners does he have? What is the presence of mind that he has? This is checked by asking tricky questions. What are your interests, your hobbies? Basically, he checks what kind of officer-like qualities do you possess. Now, veto power. What is veto power? I just told you there are 3 different assessors who would assess you. Now, in order to clear the SSB, all 3 assessors have to write a favorable report about you. If only 2 people write a good report and the third says, I don't find him to be suitable to become an officer, it would render you to get rejected. So this is what veto power implies. Okay. All the tests, some tests entail writing something, and in some tests you are required to speak verbally, orally. So all these tests are conducted in English. You are not permitted to write or speak in Hindi or any other regional language. So please remember that all these tests are conducted in English, and that is the reason why I am conducting this session in English, so that you also get used to being able to speak English effectively. Now, there is no reserved quota as far as SSB is concerned, or even for that matter, the written part of NDA or CDS or AFCAT is concerned. There is no reserved quota for SC, ST, OBC candidates. There is also no reserved quota for children of people who are from the armed forces background. Even for them, there is no reserved quota. All your selection takes place purely on your own capabilities, on your merit. There is also no region-wise or state-wise quota. For example, let's say NDA, the vacancies, total vacancies are 400, 370 for boys, 30 for girls. But there is no region-wise quota ki out of 370 boys, we'll take 25 boys from UP, 7 from Punjab, 4 from Uttarakhand, 11 from Bihar. There's no such thing. All 370 candidates can be from one state or from one city or from one lane, from one village. If they find the best candidates from one part, they will take all 370 from that part only. So there's no state-wise distribution of vacancies. Okay, before each test is conducted, a detailed briefing is carried out by the psychologist or the GTO, depending on whose test it is. When the briefing is being done, you are allowed to ask questions and clarify your doubts. But once the test is in progress, once it starts, commences, nobody is allowed to speak. You cannot raise your hand and start asking questions or start clarifying your doubts. You are not allowed to do that. You can do it only till the time that briefing is taking place. After that, if you have not understood anything when the test is in progress, you have to keep silent. If you create any kind of noise, it will render you to be removed from that test. Okay, once you get rejected, in case you get rejected, whether on the first day or on the fifth day, when you get rejected on the first day, it is called screened out. If you get rejected on the fifth day, it is called conferenced out. So whether you get rejected on the first day or on the fifth day, no reason for your rejection is given to you. Nobody will counsel you कि आपने ये test अच्छा नहीं किया इसलिए reject कर रहे हैं. This is something which you will have to figure out on your own. And when you go for your next SSB, you have to take corrective measures and set that problem, fix that problem before you go for the second SSB. But nobody will guide you, nobody will counsel you, nobody will explain to you why you have got rejected. Okay. Now this is a very important slide. Please read it in detail and understand what is being said. This is a major cause of rejection of candidates. So please, I'll give you 30 seconds to read and understand this slide. Okay. Let's move to the next slide. Causes for rejection in SSB. This is linked to the previous slide. Because of poor communication skills, 90% rejection takes place. Now, what does it mean? Poor communication skills means inability to express your views in the English language. I just told you all the tests are conducted in English. And in most of the tests, you are required to speak, like in your interview, group discussion, lecturate, your PPDT, even in the GTO's outdoor test, you first have to discuss a plan with others before you implement it. So all these tests require of you to speak in English. So not being able to speak in English is poor communication skills. So for this reason, almost 90% rejection takes place. And for other causes, 10% rejection takes place. What are other causes? Poor physical fitness, not being very strong physically, or having poor discipline, or not being able to understand how to conduct this, how to fare in this test, not being able to understand all this. For this reason, 10% people get rejected. 90% get rejected because of poor communication skills, inability to speak in English. Okay, after this, there are two more stages. I will not talk in detail about it. After your SSB, even if you clear the SSB, you cannot begin to boast that you have qualified in NDA, because there are two more stages. Which are those two more stages that you are required to clear? First is the medical test. So, ये पढ़ लीजिए, read what is written. There are 3 reasons for rejection or outcome. What are those 3 outcomes of medical You can, this is displayed on the slide, have a look, and then I'll go to the next one. Okay. And the next is merit list. I just told you there are three, let's say in the case of boys, there are 370 vacancies for NDA. Let's say 412 boys make it through the written exam, the SSB interview, and the medical. So it does not mean 412 boys will join NDA. No, only 370 boys will join, not 412. So who are those 370 boys? Now, after your medical, a merit list is made, which is of 1800 marks in the case of NDA, 900 marks for your written exam, 900 for your SSB. So your marks of your written exam and SSB are added and a merit list is made. If you are in the top 370 as per that merit list, that means you are going to join NDA. If you are at 371st position, even though you have cleared all the three stages, but you are low in the merit, which means you will, even after clearing all these stages, you're not joining NDA. So this is the fourth stage. Okay. This part is not really relevant to you, but you can have a look at it. It is not relevant for the NDA candidates. Okay, now in SSB, there are two types of tests that you would be appearing for. One is timed, one is not timed. Now, what is timed and not timed? Timed are those tests where you are given a definite, a fixed amount of time to appear in that test. But there are some tests where there is no time limit assigned. For example, a group discussion. कोई ऐसा टाइम नहीं है कि this group discussion will end in 11 minutes. It may end in 11 minutes, it may end in 22 minutes, it may even go beyond half an hour. Similarly, an interview, it is not timed. In some candidates' case, that interview may end in 7-8 minutes. In another candidate's case, it may end in 30 minutes. So there is no fixed time. So there's some tests which are timed, but most of the tests are not timed. Okay. Now, the second part. I just told you that entire process of selection lasts for a period of 5 days. Now, what is the breakdown of this 5-day period? Let's look at it. And before that, you have to report 1 day prior to the start of your SSB. For example, if they tell you you have to report for SSB on 22nd of October, that means day 1 of your SSB will be 23rd. You are required to report 1 day earlier so that you can settle down. You are assigned a bed in the dormitory, you settle down, prepare everything for the next day, and next day, 23rd October, would be day 1 of your SSB. So let's look at the breakdown now. Day 1. First is opening address by some member of that SSB, wherein he issues certain general instructions and he welcomes you. It is basically a welcome address which lasts for 2, 3, 4 minutes, not more than that. Number 2, documentation. You'll have to fill some forms. The clerical staff of the SSB board would check all the documents that you were required to bring, and you will have to, you will be allotted a chest number. What is a chest number? I'll show in the next slide. Okay, the third thing is filling of a form called PIQ form, Personal Information Questionnaire form. What is the relevance of this form? I will explain once I begin that SSB session, that 2 or 3 week session. That is the time I'll be able to explain about this in great detail, not today. So this is the third thing. So point number A, B, and C are administrative points, and point number D and E are where your actual testing process starts. So point number D, there are two tests: intelligence test verbal, intelligence test non-verbal. So this is the first, these are the first two tests. And last So these are instructions that he would talk about in that opening address. Okay. Now, about that PPDT screening test. On the first day, when you are reporting for your SSB, there would be as many as 300 to 350 candidates who report. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, but roughly around 300 plus. Now, after that PPDT test, as many as 70 to 80% candidates get rejected on the very first day. So please bear this in mind, how important this PPDT test is. Okay, now whatever candidates are able to clear who go to stage 2, then they make batches of about 20, 21, maybe 22 candidates in each batch, and on an average in each group about 2 to 3 candidates get selected out of 20, sometimes more than 3, sometimes not even 1, but the average is 2 to 3% in a group of about 20 or 21 candidates. So that is the rough ratio. Okay. The overall selection rate in SSB is about 2 to 3%. So this is something which will tell you that you've got to begin to work on this selection process straight away. If you wish to clear the SSB, you cannot sit idle. You must begin to work on it right this very moment onwards. Okay, chest number that I talk about. So this, it's a kind of it's a piece of cloth which has a number displayed on it, like you're seeing on the screen. So every candidate appearing for SSB is assigned a chest number. This chest number is displayed both in the front and in the rear, like this. And you are required to wear this chest number during that entire SSB process, whether it is an indoor test or an outdoor test. Throughout the SSB testing process, the candidate is required to wear this chest number, and you are not allowed to address each other by his or her name. You have to address other candidates only by their chest numbers, not by their name. Okay, even during the interview by the president, you are required to wear this chest number. Even if you're wearing a suit or a shirt and tie, you still have to wear the chest number, as you can see in this figure, in this slide. So on top of your suit that you're wearing, you have to put on this chest number. Okay. Now day 2, there are 4 tests that are conducted on day 2. The first is WAT, Word Association Test. It is a psychological test. What is this test about? I will not explain now because of paucity of time, but I'll have told you these are the tests. The first is WAT, Word Association Test. The second test is TAT. The full form is Thematic Appreciation Test. The third test is SRT, Situation Reaction Test. And the fourth test is SDT, Self Description Test. So all these 4 tests are psychological tests. Now day 1 and day 2 are earmarked for the psychologist. At the end of SDT, all the psychological tests get over. Now let's go to day 3. Before that, now some of these tests, the psychological tests are conducted inside a hall, a big hall which has a screen. Some candidates have asked me, sir, मेरे को पीछे बिठा दिया तो I'll be at a disadvantage. I'll not be able to see that screen. So you don't have to worry. It will not be a very small screen. It will be a very big screen. So whether you are seated in the front or at the end or somewhere in the middle, your seating position will have no bearing on your being able to see what is on display. You will clearly be able to see the word or that image which is being shown to you. So your seating has nothing to do. You will still be able to, even if you are a backbencher, you will still be able to see that screen very clearly. Okay. Now day 3. Day 3 and day 4 are earmarked for the GTO. Now day 3, the GTO has two type of tests, indoor tests, outdoor tests. So on day 3, he begins with the 3 indoor tests first. The first indoor test is group discussion. There are 2 rounds of group discussion, more about it subsequently. What happens and how is it conducted, that part I am leaving. I am just telling you what are the tests conducted on day 3. So the first is group discussion. The second is GPE, Group Planning Exercise. It is also called MPE, Military Planning Exercise. The third test is lecturate. Every candidate is required to deliver a lecturate, a small lecture of 3 minutes duration according to the topic that is assigned to him. Okay. After these 3 tests, there are 4 more tests that are conducted by the GTO on day 3. These are number 1, PGT, Progressive Group Task. That is the first outdoor test of the GTO. Number 1. Number 2 is IGOR, Intergroup Obstacle Race. This test is also called snake race. The third is HGT, Half Group Task. And the fourth test is command task. Okay, these are the 4 outdoor tests plus 3 indoor tests that are conducted on day 3. Day 3, out of those 5 days that you will spend in SSB, you will find day 3 is a very, very busy day. Sometimes lunch also get delayed and it will be a very tiring day for you, day 3. Okay, now day 4. Day 4, there are 2 tests that are conducted by the GTO. First is individual obstacles, wherein you have to cross 10 obstacles in a period of 3 minutes time, either 10 or as many as you can. So that test is called individual obstacles. Number 2 is FGT, Final Group Task. So these are the 2 tests that are conducted on day 4. Now I'll leave this part because we have not run any tests, so you will not understand what is this slide about, but I'll leave it and I'll go to day 5. But before that, interview by the president. Now the interview by the president is conducted on all 4 days, day 1, day 2, day 3 and day 4. Now when will you be interviewed depends on your chest number. Let's say there are 20 candidates in your group. So the first 5 candidates, chest number 1 to 5, they will be interviewed on day 1, sometime in the evening. After the tests are over, sometime in the evening or in the afternoon or at night, depending on the availability of the president, you will be told that these 5 candidates will be interviewed today. So the first 5 on the first day, the next 5, chest number 6 to 10 on the second day, chest number 11 to 15 on day 3, and the remaining 4 or 5 or 6, whatever number of candidates are left, they are interviewed on the 4th day. The interview is generally carried out after the day's tests are over, either in the afternoon or in the evening, depending on the availability of the president. You will be informed in the morning that chest number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you will not go outside today to visit the city because you have your interview, president's interview in the evening. You will be informed well in time. Okay. Now the 5th day. On the 5th day, there is no test which is conducted, but there are 3 things. First is final board conference. What is this test? I'll just talk about. Not test, what is this event? I'll talk about. Number 1. Number 2 is closing address. Just like you had an opening address on day 1, on the 5th day you have a closing address. And the third thing is declaration of results, the outcome of your SSB. Okay, now final board conference. What happens in the final board conference? Every candidate is given 1 minute's time. He walks into a conference hall and all the members of that SSB board, the president, all the GTOs, all the psychologists are present. And this candidate who's called in, one by one you will be called in. You have to share your experience of that 5-day stay. What did you like? What did you not like? What are your views about it? Things like that. You can give suggestions for improvement of the conduct of SSB tests. And if you, this suggestion part you can give only about the administrative part, not about the the tests, you cannot give any suggestion about the test. You can only give suggestions about the administrative part. If you did not like the food, or if the water for your bathing was not warm enough, things like that. So this part, this kind of suggestion you can give. Okay, this is the layout of the conference room. This is those candidates would have to continue staying in that ssb premises for another 3 to 4 days till all the medical tests are over. And after that, they too go back home. Okay. Now, basically, I was talking about OLQs. These are the OLQs which you, first of all, the full form of OLQ is Officer Like Qualities. There are 15 OLQs that are checked in a candidate through those 17 tests. Each test is designed to check the presence or absence of some OLQs in a candidate. Now, basically there are two types of OLQs. One is something which is inherent in you, which you already have since birth. But there are other OLQs which can be developed, like physical fitness. If, let's say, you are very weak today, physically very weak, but if you keep, start going for a jog, morning jog, start playing football, or do yoga and pranayam, within a month or maybe 2 months, your physical fitness can be developed. Similarly, communication skills. You may be weak in your communication skills. Okay, so the communication skills. If you are very weak in your communication skills today, but within 3-4 months, if you keep practicing, if you try to learn this language, you will be able to develop this. So there are two type of OLQs. Okay. Now when you go for your ssb, this is what they check: presence of OLQ or absence of OLQ. Now there are two possibilities. Either you do not have any that OLQ in any measure, or you have that OLQ but not up to the level that they want you to have. So you will get rejected in both the cases. Now just to give you an example, if I come to your place and you offer me a cup of tea, and let's say I take 2 spoons of sugar in my tea, and you do not put any sugar in it, would I like that cup of tea? No, I won't. I'll say 𝗙𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 hai. Now let's take the second case. I take 2 spoons of sugar in my tea and you put आधा चम्मच of sugar. So still I will not like that cup of tea because it is not according to my taste. Similarly, OLQs se related, either you do not have any OLQ at all, so you will get rejected, or if you have OLQ but up to a certain extent, not up to the required level which they want to see, so still they will reject you. He does not have the requisite OLQ. So this is what OLQ is all about. Now basically there are 15 OLQs which are divided under 4 heads. So instead of my reading it out, you can read the slide. Which are the 4 headings? These are the 4 headings. Under the first heading, 4 OLQs, second heading 3, third heading 5, and fourth heading 3 OLQs. So this is how those 15 OLQs are divided. Now the first heading, these are the 4 OLQs that come under the first head. Number 2, 3 OLQs related to the heart or temperament. Number 3, 5 OLQs. This is the most important head, and these are the most important OLQs as far as Ssb is concerned. And number 4, these are the 3 OLQs related to your social adjustment, your physical fitness, etc. So total 15 OLQs, and a summary of all 15 is on display. These are the 15 OLQs which they want to see that a candidate has in him in requisite measure. Okay, now the last part, preparatory actions. What preparatory actions a candidate must begin to take now, from now onwards, in order to ensure his selection in Ssb in the very first attempt. Please do not wait for your result to come out. Even if you have a very slight chance of clearing the written, please assume that you're going to clear the written and go full stream preparing for your Ssb. Now, what actions must you need to take? There are six things that I would recommend. Number 1, communication skills, a very important factor in clearing the Ssb, an extremely important factor. You should be able to express your ideas and your thoughts effectively in English. In the beginning, I told you, even if you're weak in English today, all you need is 3 to 4 months time to be able to raise your level to that extent that you will be able to clear the Ssb. So start doing it now. Don't wait for the UPSC result to come out. If you begin preparing for your Ssb after the result, probably you would run out of time. You may not have enough time to prepare for Ssb. Number 2, newspaper. You must begin to read the newspaper on a daily basis. Form that habit, right? Learn, keep a newspaper and buy sketch pens. Let's say this is a newspaper, Times of India. Have these 2 different colored sketch pens available with you, right? When you read, just keep circling any news item which is of national or international relevance. Read it, circle that. First read it, you find something which could be asked in that by the president in that interview, you'll have to circle, right? And use different colored pens. Red pen for national news, blue pen for international news, green pen for anything related to economy, a brown colored pen for something related to sports, and so on and so forth. So if you do this, it will facilitate your getting into that groove where you would be, in the know of things. Your knowledge about national events and international events will keep improving. So this is a very important thing which you need to do. Reading the newspaper, forming that habit. Number 3, you must have a word map and a map of India. There'll be a lot of questions. Any question related to international news, the president can ask, okay, where is Brazil? Let's say there's a war going on in Ukraine. Where is Ukraine? Or which are the neighboring countries of Ukraine? So these are the questions you will only be able to answer if you have a word map pasted on your wall. Every day spend 5 minutes. On the first day you say, I'll look at countries of Europe. Next day I'll admire the African continent. I'll get to know which are the countries in Africa, and on that African continent, which are the countries in the north, which are in the south, which are in the central part of Africa, and so on and so forth. So basically you have to familiarize yourself with the geography of the world. and also of India. Number 4, dictionary. Dictionary is a very important tool for you to improve your communication skills. So your aim should be you must learn 5 new words every day. That should be the target. You cannot have good communication skills if you have a limited vocabulary. In order to improve your communication skills, you have to have a very strong vocabulary. So this vocabulary part, the dictionary will take care of. Okay, you must join a good coaching institute that can train you for the SSB process under an army officer's guidance who has been on the panel of a SSB board. A lot of candidates, they make a mistake. They join coaching institutes where that somebody who's from a civilian background, a physics teacher, a geography teacher, a maths teacher, how can he tell you anything about SSB? So joining that kind of an institute would be a wrong step. Instead of helping you, it will hinder you to get selected in SSB. So make up your mind wherever you feel you under the guidance of somebody who's from the armed forces. If you can join that kind of a SSB training institute, it will help you because the concept about SSB will, about all the 17 tests will get cleared. Only that kind of a person can clear that concept, not a geography or a chemistry teacher. Physical fitness, please improve your physical fitness. Start going for a morning jog or a long walk. Start playing games, any kind of physical activity, whether it is walking, cycling, playing football, badminton, anything which will enhance your physical fitness. Okay, so these were the 6 things that I would recommend you must begin to do from today itself. Now here I come to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, you can type them on the screen. I'll spend about 15-20 minutes reading your questions and answering them one by one. So please punch in your questions and I'll answer them. कोई question आए तो मुझे बताना. चंद्रेश वर्मा, सर मैं इंग्लिश बोलना नहीं आता, तो आपको ये इंग्लिश बोलना सीखना पड़ेगा. You will have to learn it. And I told you, even if you're weak in English today, there is nothing much to worry about. In 3-4 months time, you can learn English, become proficient up to an extent wherein you will be able to clear the SSB very comfortably. Okay, any other question? Please type question, yes bro, no bro, ये लिखने की जरूरत नहीं है, please leave that. Just if you have any questions, please type that. बाकी लोग refrain from typing your comments. Communication skills, how do we improve our communication skills? Okay, now there's another session which I will subsequently take on communication skills and I'll explain that. Whose dictionary? Your own dictionary, any dictionary, Oxford dictionary. OIR नहीं होता क्या SSB में? OIR जो इंटेलिजेंस टेस्ट वर्बल एंड नॉन वर्बल हैं, वो OIR ही टेस्ट होते हैं. Intelligence test, verbal and non-verbal. Hesitation problem, the more you practice, the more your hesitation will get removed. Keep practicing, your hesitation will go away. हिंदी मीडियम से हूँ, कोई बात नहीं, आप अंग्रेजी सीख सकते हो, क्योंकि SSB में तो सारे टेस्ट अंग्रेजी में होते हैं, तो आपको अंग्रेजी सीखनी पड़ेगी. क्या है मेरी इंग्लिश नहीं? You'll have to, if your English newspaper is not available, you can study that newspaper, read that newspaper online. How to develop OLQs. When you join that SSB session, I'll explain all the tests and which tests check which OLQs and how to improve. So that cannot be explained in 5 minutes. I have physical fitness problem. I just told you this is what you need to do. Go for a walk, play football, swimming, cycling, anything which will, any physical activity will improve your physical fitness. which institute is best for SSB preparation? This is a very difficult question to answer. I'll say I'm the best. Somebody else will say he is the best. Now it is for you to decide who you have confidence in and where you must join. Sir, I'm preparing for NDA. I can begin. Yes, why not? If you are preparing for NDA 1, which will be in 2023, what is stopping you from preparing for SSB from today itself? Why not? You can do it. The earlier, the better. Okay. Which institute is best for SSB? Now that is for you to decide. Who do you have confidence in? Interview में क्या तैयारी होती है? I told you he'll ask questions to check your personality. बाकी चीजें तो आप कर लोगे, but knowledge about major events taking place in the country and those events worldwide which have a bearing on our own nation. This is what you need to pay a lot of attention to. How to improve attitude and personality? It's not very difficult. It is a very easy thing. अब आप join करेंगे तो फिर आपको बता देंगे और detail में. Finger problem in my, that is not within this subject, so I will not answer that. I'm at the border of passing in written. Should I start SSB? Yes, why not? जितनी जल्दी आप शुरू करेंगे उतना ज़्यादा आपके chances हैं SSB clear करने के. ये scroll थोड़ा नीचे करो यार, बहुत speed में, I can't even read. Is there any advantage for Hindi medium student if he uses in? I have not understood your question. I have just told you सारे टेस्ट अंग्रेजी में होते हैं, हिंदी में आपको बोलने नहीं देंगे वो, या हिंदी में बोलेंगे तो आपका वो कोई पॉइंट को नोटिस नहीं करेगा. Can you prefer any book for SSB? There is no book for SSB. SSB is about your personality. SSB is not a subject of geography or chemistry. So you when you go through those that SSB training under a mentor, whatever he tells you, keep practicing that. That is good enough. You don't need a book. Okay, what else? आप SSB का preparation कराएंगे क्या CDA में? Yes, why not? Of course. What else am I here for? Yes, the answer to your question is yes. This is what we'll do. आपके यहाँ SSB की तैयारी होती है? जी हाँ, होती है. Yes. Tell something about TES entry. TES entry का ये नहीं है, SSB का सब्जेक्ट है. TES में भी SSB होती है. SSB जो मैंने बताया वो TES की भी SSB सेम है. हाउ टू इम्प्रूव GTO स्किल. ये GTO स्किल्स क्या होता है भाई? GTO स्किल्स तो कोई चीज होती नहीं, मैंने तो कभी सुना नहीं. आई वॉज अ GTO माई सेल्फ, बट आई हैव नेवर हर्ड ऑफ अ थिंग कॉल्ड GTO स्किल्स. देयर इज नथिंग कॉल्ड GTO स्किल्स. वैट एंड टेस्ट कैसे इम्प्रूव करें? जब आप पहले वैट और टेस्ट इम्प्रूव करने से पहले उसका कॉन्सेप्ट तो समझ लो भाई. इम्प्रूव तो बाद में करना. यू कैन ओनली इम्प्रूव अ थिंग about which you know about the concept. तो concept ही नहीं जानते तो improve कैसे करोगे? पहले उसको समझ तो लो क्या चीज होता है ये टेस्ट में, फिर उसको improve करना. 3 weeks. Kapil Nautiyal, your answer is 3 weeks. क्या SSB तैयारी कब से शुरू? अभिनव सिंह, कब से शुरू कर सकते हैं? जब से, जितनी जल्दी करोगे उतना ज्यादा फायदा है आपको. Okay, fees and all that, that is not my subject. That is an administrative point. You can ask questions about pertaining to SSB. That part I'll answer. SSB की कोचिंग कितने? 3 weeks की. This session is about SSB. Deepak Sharma, I told you you must ask questions about SSB. आप तो written पे आ गए. JCB. What is JCB? I don't know, Aditya Kumar. What JCB are you talking about? सैलरी कितनी होती है? किसकी सैलरी? ज्ञानेंद्र सिंह चौहान, किसकी सैलरी पूछ रहे हैं आप? If I clear all tests but out in conference, जब कॉन्फ्रेंस में आउट हो गए तो आप एसएसबी कहाँ क्लियर किया आपने? ऑब्वियसली आप रिजेक्ट हो गए हैं। एसएसबी के लिए कोई भी बुक पढ़नी आवश्यक नहीं है। एसएसबी की बुक पढ़ने से आप क्लियर नहीं करेंगे, एसएसबी की ट्रेनिंग और उसका कॉन्सेप्ट जानने से क्लियर करेंगे। बुक कोई नहीं होती, कोई पढ़ने की जरूरत भी नहीं है। चलो, वन लास्ट क्वेश्चन एंड देन वील एंड दिस सेशन। I'm preparing for CD, whether it is CDS or NDA or AFCAT. I told you the SSB process is the same, 100% it is exactly the same. तो कहीं पे भी आप SSB के लिए ट्रेनिंग के लिए ज्वाइन करेंगे, वही SSB NDA की, वही CDS की, वही सबकी सेम है। चलो, लास्ट क्वेश्चन एंड देन वील कॉल इट ऑफ। हाँ जी सर, ये क्लास पर डे होगी? यस, पर डे होगी, एवरी डे होगी। यस, चलिए तो ठीक है। थैंक यू वेरी मच, इट वाज अ प्लेजर इंटरेक्टिंग विथ यू and more when we get to meet face to face. So thank you very much and all the best. I hope you people get selected, clear the SSB, and you are able to join NDA. So my best wishes to you. Thank you very